Invisible Sheep. Welcome back to our classroom. Today, I'll be teaching you about making soluble and insoluble salts. What are salts? I'll give you a quick recap on that. Salts are ionic compounds formed when an acid reacts with a base, or alkali. The hydrogen ion, H+, from the acid is replaced by a metal ion, or ammonium ion. They are formed during neutralization reactions. For example, hydrochloric acid plus sodium hydroxide becomes sodium chloride plus water. The rules for solubility is that not all salts dissolve in water. Some are soluble, which means it dissolves in water, and some are insoluble, which means it does not dissolve. Knowing these rules helps us predict which salts will dissolve and how to make those salts. The key rules to this is all sodium, potassium, and ammonium salts are soluble. All nitrates are soluble as well. Most chlorides are soluble, except silver chloride and lead chloride. Most sulfates are also soluble, except for barium sulfate, lead sulfate, and calcium sulfate. Most carbonates are insoluble, except for sodium, potassium, and ammonium carbonate. Most hydroxides are insoluble, except sodium, potassium, and ammonium hydroxide. Making soluble salts, which is an acid plus metal reaction. For making a soluble salt from a metal above hydrogen in the reactivity series. For example, zinc, magnesium, and iron. The steps are, first you need to add excess, which means more than enough, of the reactive material to a dilute acid. The metal will then start to react, producing the salts and hydrogen gas. Then filter off the unreactive excess metal using a funnel lined with filter paper. Heat the solution to evaporate most of the water, leaving a concentrated salt solution. Allow the solution to cool for a crystal to form, which is crystallization. Filter and then dry the crystals off. The general equation is acid plus metal becomes salt plus hydrogen gas. Making soluble salts, which is an acid plus base, or carbonate or alkali. For making a soluble salt from a base, carbonate, or alkali. The steps are add excess of the insoluble base or carbonate to a dilute acid. Then the solid will start to react. Then filter off the unreacted excess solid using a funnel lined with filter paper. Then heat to evaporate most of the water. Cool for crystallization to occur. Then filter it and dry the crystals. Just the same as before. The general equations are acid plus base becomes salt plus water, and acid plus carbonate becomes salt plus water plus carbon dioxide. An example is hydrochloric acid plus copper 2 oxide becomes copper 2 chloride plus water. Another way to make soluble salts using acids and bases and carbonates or alkalis, the steps are first, accurately measure the volume of acid needed to neutralize a known volume of alkali using an indicator. For example, phenolphthalein. You'll know how to do this if you watch my titrations video. This is called titration. Then repeat the experiment without the indicator using the exact volumes that you determined. Then heat to evaporate most of the water, and then cool for the crystallization to occur. Then filter them and then dry them. Now I'll teach you how to make insoluble salts. The precipitation reaction. To make a salt that does not dissolve in water. This is a very common method. First, choose 2 soluble salts that, when mixed, will form your desired insoluble salt. Then dissolve each soluble salt in water to create aqueous solutions. Then mix the 2 solutions together. And then an insoluble precipitate, the solid salt, will form at the bottom or float to the top. Then filter the mixture to collect the solid precipitate. You should filter this using a funnel lined with filter paper. Then wash the precipitate with distilled water to remove any impurities. For example, any soluble salts that is left on it. Then filter the mixture of the distilled water and the precipitate to collect the solid precipitate once again. Then dry the precipitate using, for example, an oven or just leaving it in a warm place like your windowsill. The general equation is soluble salt A, which is aqueous, plus soluble salt B, which is also aqueous, becomes an insoluble salt C, which is a solid, plus soluble salt D, which is aqueous. For example, lead 2 nitrate, which is aqueous, plus sodium iodide, which is aqueous, becomes lead 2 iodide, which is a solid, and sodium nitrate, which is aqueous. Here's a summary of what we learned together today. To make a soluble salt, you need an acid plus metal for some only for reactive metals though. Acid plus an insoluble base or carbonate for non-reactive metals. An acid plus soluble alkali, you need to use titration for this, for group 1 or ammonium salts. To make an insoluble salt, use precipitation, the mixing of 2 soluble salts. Now, I'll give you a few questions to test how well you understood my lesson today. Number 1. Describe the general process for making a soluble salt from an insoluble base. Number 2. Explain why you would use filtration when making an insoluble salt. Number 3. Name one soluble salt and one insoluble salt. The answer to number 1 is add access of an insoluble base to a dilute acid, then filter off the unreacted base, heat to evaporate most of the water, then cool to crystallize, and then finally filter and dry the crystals off. The answer to number 2 is when making an insoluble salt by precipitation, filtration is used to separate the solid insoluble salt, the precipitate, from the liquid solution. The answer to number 3 is some soluble salt examples are sodium chloride, potassium nitrate, and magnesium sulfate. Of course, there are other answers, but these are just some examples. Some insoluble salt answers that you could have had are silver chloride, barium sulfate, lead iodide, and calcium carbonate. Again, these are just some examples. And that is it for today's video. Please like and subscribe if you learned something new. 3, 2, 1. Me.